There is a message that has become very popular in professional development circles. If you feel stuck, reinvent yourself. Change industries. Start something new. Become a completely different version of yourself. And sometimes reinvention is exactly what a person needs, but not always. Because sometimes reinvention is not transformation. Sometimes it is avoidance of discomfort, avoidance of difficult reflection, avoidance of confronting the real reason something no longer fits. And high-achieving corporate women are particularly vulnerable to this, not because they lack discipline, but because they are highly capable. When something feels wrong, when something feels uncomfortable, they move quickly to solve it. They strategize, they plan, they execute. But when discomfort is misdiagnosed, the solution can be misdirected. Let's anchor something important first. High-achieving corporate women do not burn out because they are weak. They burn out because they are misaligned. But misalignment does not automatically mean reinvention. Sometimes it means recalibration. Sometimes it means adjustment. Sometimes it means identity clarification. And sometimes, yes, it means transition. But reinvention should never be the first response to discomfort, because reinvention without diagnosis often recreates the same problem in a new environment. Let me explain why. When professionals feel exhausted or disconnected in their work, the natural instinct is to escape the environment. If I leave this company, I'll feel better. If I start something new, I'll feel energized again. If I change industries, everything will be different. But if the underlying issue is not the environment, if the underlying issue is identity misalignment, then changing environments alone will not solve the problem. It will simply relocate the tension. This is why many professionals experience what I call reinvention cycle. They leave one role seeking relief. They enter into a new role with hope. The novelty feels refreshing at first, but eventually the same internal tension returns. Not because the new role is bad, but because the underlying identity questions were never addressed. And identity questions do not disappear when you change jobs. They follow you. So before you reinvent your career, you must first understand what you are actually trying to escape. Is it the work itself? Is it the work itself, the environment, the leadership culture, or the internal expectations you have placed on yourself? Those distinctions matter because each one requires a different response. Let's explore something deeper. Discomfort in your career can come from two different places. The first is misalignment. The second is growth tension. Misalignment occurs when your identity, values, and environment conflict. Growth tension occurs when you are expanding into a new level of responsibility. Both feel uncomfortable, but their meaning is completely different. Misalignment drains energy. Growth tension stretches capacity. Misalignment creates emotional fatigue. Growth tension creates temporary pressure. Misalignment persists even after the rest. Growth tension stabilizes as competence develops. If you mistake growth tension for misalignment, you may abandon opportunities that were actually expanding your potential. But if you mistake misalignment for growth tension, you may stay in environment that quietly erode your identity. This is why clarity must come before reinvention. Now let's talk about something many women hesitate to admit. Sometimes the desire to reinvent your career is actually a desire to escape internal conflict. Conflict between your values and your environment. Conflict between your ambition and your evolving priorities. Conflict between who you have been and who you are becoming. Escaping the environment may temporarily relieve the tension, but unless the conflict is examined, it will appear again. And this is where many high-achieving women become frustrated. They start questioning themselves. Why does this keep happening? Why do I feel the same tension in different roles? Maybe this is just how work feels. No, often it means the deeper identity conversation has not yet happened. That conversation requires slowing down, not rushing towards the next opportunity, but asking more thoughtful questions. Who am I becoming? What values have become non-negotiable? What type of leadership environment allows me to lead authentically? What definition of success feels aligned now? Those questions create clarity, and clarity changes how transitions happen. Instead of running away from discomfort, you move toward alignment. That shift makes an enormous difference, because transitions driven by avoidance tend to be reactive. Transitions driven by alignment tend to be strategic. This is why the first phase of the RTS method is realign, not transition. Realign. In this phase, we focus on identity clarity, understanding who you are becoming. Recognizing where friction exists, separating emotional exhaustion from structural misalignment. Once that clarity emerges, the next phase becomes possible. Transition. This phase focuses on designing a strategic move that protects your income, your credibility, and your professional narrative. Because thoughtful transitions strengthen your career rather than destabilize it. And finally comes sustain. This phase ensures that your next chapter remains aligned with your evolving identity, so that success no longer requires internal compromise. Because success that costs your identity is not sustainable success. Let me offer a metaphor. Imagine that you are driving a car that feels unstable. You feel tension in the steering wheel. The ride feels uncomfortable. Now imagine responding to that discomfort by immediately buying a new car. You might temporarily feel relief. But if the issue was actually the alignment of the wheels, the same problem would eventually reappear. The wiser step would have been to diagnose the alignment first. Careers work the same way. Reinvention without diagnosis often recreates the same misalignment, but recalibration creates clarity, and clarity leads to sustainable change. Let's bring all this together. If you feel the urge to reinvent your career right now, pause long enough to ask yourself a few important questions. Am I trying to escape something or move towards something meaningful? Is this discomfort coming from misalignment or from growth? Have I clarified who I am becoming before deciding where I should go next? Those questions slow down reactive decisions, and they create space for thoughtful ones, because the goal is not simply to change. The goal is to align, and alignment is what sustains long-term success. If you are a high-achieving corporate woman navigating a season of questioning, you are not unstable. You are evolving. and evolution requires clarity before movement. In the next video, we are going to talk about something that affects many professionals during periods of uncertainty. How to make career decisions without emotional reactivity. Because emotional decisions often create short-term relief, but strategic decisions create long-term alignment. And learning the difference between the two changes everything. I will see you on the next one.